It's time for Talkin Tauntauns, your Star Wars source at AIPTcomics.com.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Talkin Tauntauns. I am Jim Lahane, and with me, as always, is Nicole Herview.
Hello. Me.
I can't even
You got
say
it.
that.
You got it, Jim. It's all good.
And with us is a man who perhaps knows more Star Wars lore than I do. Because
And
he
me too,
wrote,
combined.
Us combined, because he wrote probably 1,002% of it. It's the man with a beard who launched 1,000 ships. It's Jason Fry.
Hey, how are you? I can't live up to that introduction, but it's nice to be back with you. So yeah, thanks. And
That's
yeah,
right.
the beard is not visible, but it has returned to its full glory.
It looks like it got trimmed a little since Celebration.
Yeah, probably. I told people I was going for the 19th century president thing, and I was told that was no longer relevant. And then after I trimmed it, somebody said it was really more hillbilly. So I think I learned a lesson there.
No, I can see. I now that I think back, 19th century president fit correctly. You're right.
Yeah, but you're going for Rutherford B. Hayes, and then you wind up at ZZ Top. You got to kind of rethink things. So even I can learn occasionally.
You need to rethink your life, boy.
My goodness. Well, I was going to say vintage is in vogue, but, I don't know if that brand of vintage
is
correct.
Color photography, maybe.
Which level of vintage are we looking at?
Right. My goodness.
So how are you doing, Jason?
I'm good. Enjoying Star Wars, which is a nice thing to say, and loving Andor, and surrounded by little plastic dudes, which always makes me happy. So no one can see it, but it's the vintage Dark Times retro Vader, which I just love. It's like the Kenner Vader we never quite got, where everything's kind of accurate, but yet it's still, looks basically like a salt shaker.
What's that?
I think he's dope.
Who made that?
It's Hasbro.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Actually, Chris Reif, wonderful Star Wars artist, is in charge of this line and just doing wonderful stuff. And out at Celebration, I got to fanboy over him, which was probably horribly embarrassing, but tough because when your friends do awesome things, you got to be the cheering section. But yeah, so I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm doing all right. As we talked before we got on, I'm down in Florida at the moment. Planned for a while to come down, and I haven't been able to come down to Florida to visit my mom since 2019 because something happened after that, and it derailed all our plans. And so I haven't been able to come down. And then I was supposed to come down on Columbus Day weekend, but since I had a geology convention, that got pushed off, which turns out was actually a good thing. Because she lives in or near Venice, where the hurricane hit head on, and she pretty much went mostly unscathed, but the rest of the surrounding community is still looking pretty rough in parts. And we took a tour looking at all the tarps earlier, but there's as I'm planning to come down. I was planning to come down tomorrow. Apparently there's another hurricane.
That would be Tropical Storm Nicole. You're welcome.
Yes, I'm well aware of that. My mom emails me. She's like, Nicole's gonna hit. I'm like, what is she doing?
What have I done?
What is Nicole doing now? So we Southwest is apparently absolutely fantastic. They moved our tickets back one day. Gave my wife a full refund, who wasn't able to come since we had the change day, and also didn't upcharge us because it was a lot more expensive to come on the election day. And so, I'm currently sitting in Florida, where it's 87 degrees out or
Jeez.
something.
It's always a saga, Jim. Just always a saga going on.
And yeah, I got her pool and practically in her house because all pools are in their houses in Florida because of gators. And so it was running a little over 90. Told her, I'm like, that's a little too warm.
A little bit.
So how are you, Nicole?
Oh, I'm good. Did the voting thing today. Did my civic duty. That was the most exciting thing that's happened to me because, you know, I've been working and stuff. And I'm getting ready to come down to Florida next week. So we'll switch. We'll tag in the airport.
High five.
And yeah. I'll be celebrating Life Day in Galaxy's Edge, which will also be my 30th birthday. So if you see me, say hi. Yeah.
That's pretty great. Happy early Life Day.
Thank you. I'm very honored and like happy that Life Day ends up being my birthday. I was like, of all the days, like how great is that? Like it's both a blessing and a curse for a million and one reasons. But yeah, very excited to be able to celebrate both. So yeah, I'm just getting amped for that. So it's not exciting now. It will be in like a week.
Well, I told my wife I got the Life Day Advent calendar. And I'm like, we're counting down to Nicole's birthday. She's like,
thanks, man.
Why?
Yeah, strange, but I'll accept it. Thank you.
Suddenly the rebellion is real for you. Some of us live it. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. You're not the only one who lost everything. Some of us just decided to do something about it.
So, I believe we had skipped last week talking Andor because we wanted to break down a little bit of Tales of the Jedi. But we're coming back to Andor. And it turns out that I was misled on the arcs.
Oh, yeah.
Of Andor. And we did mention that episode 7 seemed like a weird beginning of an arc and more of a post-arc where they were on Aldhani. And it was, apparently, because this is definitely not wrapped up yet. And so we get episodes 8 and 9, Narkina 5, and number 9, Nobody's Listening, which I also feel is the subcaption of our podcast.
Oh, no, Jim.
Yes, I thought of that joke on the plane while I rewatched these episodes, and I'm like,
buddy.
That may come up. Nobody's listening. And so, they are definitely the first two parts of a very intense arc. Like that last episode, Nobody's Listening. I'm like, this is a lot.
This is heavy. Every single thing I said about this show being slow in the beginning, throw it out. Just drown it. It's never mind. Like I said I might take it back. I'm taking it back. This, of course, like probably the most insane 2 episodes of the show we have to do in one episode. Of course.
I feel like next week is going to be even worse.
Oh, it's going to be insane. It got... listen, I was like, it's good. That's how I was feeling about the show until like last week. And now I'm like, oh, this is excellent. Like, this is like the level I kind of expected and hoped it would be at. This is how excited I wanted to be about this show. Like, I feel like it's really hitting its stride. And that might be Andy Serkis. I don't know. That might have something to do with it. But yeah, it's my God. Very, very pleased with these last 2 episodes. Not to spoil everything I'm about to say, but there you go.
So, what's your overall feeling? So, since we haven't talked to you about the show, Jason, overall feeling of the show and kind of how we're wrapping up into these 2, or as we're going.
I just love trusting the storytellers and the creative team. And I mean, my default impulse is to try to do that. I mean, I guess because, you know, I've been a storyteller myself, there's a kind of generosity of spirit you owe each other. But, you know, many's the time you watch something and you wind up not trusting them because they aren't setting stuff up or things are haphazard or whatever it is. But, you know, I've reached the point with this show that, you know, even if I don't know how something ties up or can't outguess it, you know, that's okay. I'm happy to sit back and watch it because I have there's a sense of a plan behind it, and a plan with confidence behind it that's unfolding on their schedule according to what they want to do. And there's a good storytelling lesson in there. Like, that's more compelling than anything else, is feeling like you're in good hands. That happens in little ways, and you saw it in these episodes too. I mean, there's some obvious callbacks, like, when you start hearing people banging on stuff on Ferrix, it's chilling because you've seen that in,
Yes.
I think the show's first real high point, that just incredibly gripping sequence. So, but, there's also little things like the show trusts you to be smart. Like, I was struck when Mon Mothma meets Vel, I think her name is. I'm terrible with the names.
Yes,
But,
Vel, her cousin.
Yeah, there's not a big reveal about that. It's not a got you. It's not anything like that. It's just the relationship that's always been there, and that it makes sense, but it doesn't clap cymbals together and make a big deal out of it. It just trusts you to fill in the blanks yourself and be like, oh, I see.
But it's also one of those, it's not what's it, like a huge reveal.
Yeah.
Because it's not a huge reveal. It's like a subtle storytelling, and just makes you go, oh.
Yeah, but it fits together so insanely well instantly. And like you said, it's just like, it trusts you to put those pieces together. Like, it gave you all the pieces. And then it was like, here you go.
Exactly. And but other things like, who's the kind of rent-a-cop? Cyril is his name?
Cyril, yeah.
Sorry, I'm terrible at this. But that was a piece of the story that, for a couple of episodes, I was like, I was kind of like, why are we following this guy still? Like, isn't he out of the story? But, something like that, like after watching the Mon Mothma Vel thing, like, I trust them. I trust that this will come together, that this makes sense. And it's just, being in good hands. That's kind of one of the greatest compliments you can give a storyteller. And I wind up giving it all the time watching this show. And that's wonderful.
It's also, like you're saying, it's very subtle, a lot of things. I want to bring up Melshi, who is like huge in this show, and I didn't realize it till somebody brought it up. The same actor, I just made sure, the same actor, Duncan Powell, played Melshi in Rogue One, who helped Jin escape at the beginning of the movie. And I heard somebody talking that. I'm like, oh, that makes sense, is mixing that in. And also the Luthen's conversation with Saw. And he's talking about, I need you to go talk to this one guy and get stuff with that one guy. And Saw's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. The next episode, they're talking about a rebel pilot who was captured, who worked for that same guy. I didn't catch that connection when I watched it 2 weeks apart, but when I watched it back to back, I'm like, wait a second. They're talking about the same guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really good. Like, I love how, I don't know how subtle it is. And like, that is, yes, absolutely. But like, this one highlight that is going to stick with me, it's the end of this episode, where it's not like a big conversation. It's not a big to do, but when Cassian and what's his nuts, Jim, Andy Serkis are walking away from like everything that just happened, like the very end of the episode, and we got their dead friend there, and they just found out the big reveal of the episode, and it's just that one subtle moment where Cassian says, how many guards are on each floor? And he just goes, never more than 12. And that's all you need to know. That's
after
it.
He's been asking for he asked like 4 times throughout the 2 episodes. And he's like, I'm not telling you. Let it go. You don't need to know. And then you could see it like break him. He's like,
brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant
Andy
way to show
Serkis is so good
changed.
in this. That a few scenes before that, there's a scene that's really just his face as he's processing stuff and realizing that he's been had, that they all have, and it's just it's wonderful, wonderful work. But yeah, and also just going back to the storytelling, admire the heck out of that. I mean, it's a line that you don't think would land like a hammer blow, no more than 12, but it does. And it does because the work got put into it. I don't mean to compare the two at all, but I wrote a Ray Sloan short story, The Levers of Power, years ago, and that whole story started. We were Tom Holler and Eric Schoenweiss of Random House and I were kicking around story ideas, and we wanted "Recall the Ties" to be the line that really landed as a surprise, as a real blow to the reader. And we were like, there's nothing intrinsically so dramatic about that line. Like, how do we make that land? And then we kind of work backwards from that to construct a story. And so that was on a much bigger scale with a much bigger budget. Watching them do that was really I just loved it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that as a writer, you're like, I want to do that. Like, how do I do that? Like, I'm so jealous. Like, that was so brilliant. Like, if I do that once in my career, I'll be like, done. I'm good. Like, that's it. It's just such a brilliant moment that could be so impactful with, in isolation, like you're saying, such like simple dialogue. But to make that work, what I love saying finesse, but what finesse? Just really, really brilliant. And that's how, like, in the beginning of the show, I wasn't sure. I wanted to have that faith, like you're talking about, like, they know what they're doing. Everything's going to work out. I just wasn't thrilled with the first couple episodes, but was like, I'm going to, this could change. Absolutely. And it completely has, because they've proven that, like, the work they're doing is better than my expectations were, which is like, that's on me. You know what I mean? But now I'm so incredibly impressed and excited by this show because of this arc. I love what they're doing, and I can't say that enough. And all of the acting performances are great, but yeah, that scene when Andy Serkis's character is like, everyone stay on program, like, we don't know what just happened, and it's all in his eyes. I've never seen anyone act with their eyes so brilliantly, and it just shows this dude's been killing it his whole career, but he's really, like, really shining right now, just, like, not doing an insane voice, not in mocap, like, it's just him shining, and I love to see, not that there's anything bad to say about any of the other work he's done, but we're really seeing how skilled he is just by himself, with nothing else going, like, he's unbelievable. And I'm listening to his audiobook, his narrating The Lord of the Rings right now, and I forget it's him, like, 90% of the time, because his voice work is so good. But it is nice to see him just, like, do some, I hate to say more traditional acting, but live action traditional acting. It's just been really cool to see that side of his skill set. And he's unbelievable. I'm going to shut up talking about Andy Serkis, but he's one of my favorite actors of all time. And
we should all talk about Andy Serkis. In another life, I wrote for a Lord of the Rings fan magazine, and so actually before the Two Towers, I interviewed Andy Serkis twice.
Oh wow!
And we had not seen him as Gollum yet, so things had not exploded. And I remember just being struck. He was just one of the nicest guys I had ever met, not just in show business, but kind of period. And, he probably talked to me for like 2.5 hours, which he didn't need to do. And I remember just thinking, like, I want the world for this guy. Like, anybody who's that nice, I want everything for him. So it's so wonderful to see. But you're right. Yeah, there's something about seeing him, just him, which, I think you said it really well, doesn't at all take away from anything else, but it's a reminder, this is not a stunt. Like, it's the foundation is this incredible acting, even with no technological filter between you and him. Yeah, it's great. It's really great to see.
Well, that's like it's like he's mostly known for the technical filters because, like, of Gollum and Caesar and Snoke. And I do need to bring up a rant of something I saw online. Yes, I love Andy Serkis. I think you're right, absolutely fantastic. The article Screen Rant, which is one of my least favorite websites, was like, this is why the sequels were terrible. And they're like, he completely misused Andy Serkis on the character Snoke. And I'm like, that literally has nothing to do with Andy Serkis. It has nothing. It's like that's basically saying the same thing as they misused Max von Sydow for a role that lasted seconds in the movies. And this like memorial actor. You can't say that sequels are terrible because they misused Andy Serkis, which they didn't.
And that's absurd because he's obviously excellent at mocap roles as well. Like, it's not like he's just good at all of it. Like, it's just such a bass backwards argument that I don't understand that. But
it made you click.
It
did make me click, and it made me angry click.
Yeah.
And I was angry at the end of it. No,
that's enough.
Don't.
Yeah, they don't care as long as you click. That's all that matters. But yeah, not my favorite argument. I think the dude's just great at everything. And I love hearing that he's a nice guy, because I hear that like across the board, and it's nice every time. Because like I've talked to so many people who aren't nice guys, like aren't nice people.
Yeah.
You want them to be, and they're just fine. They're just fine. Nothing to write home about. They're just okay. They're perfectly polite because they're working and you're working and whatever. But I always hear that he is just above and beyond incredibly kind, and I love to hear that about people, you know, because yeah, I also want the world for that guy, because man, he's good at what he does, and anytime I see him,
the don't meet your heroes complex, where the people are not as good as you hope they were when they actually are. It's like, you're my favorite human being.
Absolutely. But also, Diego Luna's killing it as well. I mean, everyone's talking about Andy Serkis because he's Andy freaking Serkis, of course.
And
but
he's
Diego,
also guest starring, essentially.
Yes, and also, when I saw him, it smacked me across the face. I was like, hello? Like, that was such a well-kept secret, at least for me. I don't know about you guys, but I was like...
I didn't know.
Andy Serkis, okay. Let's do that. That's fine. But Diego is absolutely carrying the show, like, expertly and excellently, and I do want to like give him props, and everyone's acting is great. Like, there's no one who's like, I'm not buying it. Everyone's absolutely killing it, but like, Andy delivered. If he doesn't get awards, he won't. If he doesn't get awards for this, I'm gonna scream. Like, he just killed it. But everyone's absolutely delivering. What is her name? Dedra? I don't know the actor's name. Dedra. Her face when Cyril is talking to her, I'm like, I feel everything she's feeling right now. It's like, someone get this weirdo away from me, but like, I can't. I want to freak out. I can't. It's like such... I'm confident that myself and every woman and femme-presenting person I know or have ever met in my life has had that moment. And seeing this very strong, very brilliant, very good at her job all the time, no matter what woman, go through that and just be like, with force, like, get the hell away from me. Do not talk to me. You have no right to be here. Are you out of your mind? With panic in her eyes. Like, even though she's being very, like, stern, panic. And I'm like, I feel that girl. Like, and again, I'm not rooting for the Empire, but I'm rooting for her. And I hate it a little bit, but I love her. She did that scene so well. And so did the gentleman playing Cyril. Like, he did great as well. Like, that's terrifying. I almost broke out in hives. I was like, this guy I've met this guy, and he sucks. He sucks. Like,
Denise Gao is the actor's name.
She's great. She's unbelievable. And everything I said about wanting a Rebels style, like, redemption arc for him, get rid of that too. Throw it out the window. Like,
he went full incel.
He went the other way, and I'm mad.
And she went like underdog Empire. We're all rooting for her, to torturing Bix. And at that immediate moment, I'm like, okay, I hate you now.
Yeah, ruined it.
And every time we're like, we need Bix back. I wish we didn't have Bix back. I didn't want her to go through that.
Nope, let her live.
I want to be a bad guest and ask you guys about that scene. Tell me your reaction to that scene. Whether it's, I'm curious about two things. First of all, how it's done, how it was done, and second, well, this will sound clickbaity, but how Star Wars is it? I'm really curious your reactions because I've thought about both those things a lot.
Which scene? The torture scene or
the helmet?
Oh, where she like starts screaming.
The whole thing.
It was interesting because to me it reminded me of those like the little probe droid. I guess it's not a probe droid. I don't know. I'm bad with droid names. The little thing with like the friggin' needle. Thing. Yeah, reminded me a little bit of that.
I can see your pointing. No one else can see.
Yeah, Dr. Ball could help me.
From
Dr. Ball. Yeah, the guy with you'll tell us where the rebel base is situation. It had similar energy, just like add more horror. So like kind of Star Wars. Like it did feel a little out of place, but that might be because I was so freaking uncomfortable. I thought it might be a little much. Like, I feel like every other time we've seen something like that in Star Wars, we cut away and we don't get the full effect of how terrifying that is. I felt like it was in line with, like, Rogue One and that energy, which is, of course, what this show, like, ties into. But it's definitely, it doesn't feel original trilogy Star Wars, I'll tell you that right now. Like, it felt very different to me. I don't know if that's a bad thing, necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of neutral about it, but I did notice it. You know, I did say to myself, like, this is extreme for this, but so is this whole show. I mean, we got 2 episodes about, like, the prison industrial complex. That's not exactly the most Star Wars traditionally. But yeah, I did notice it. Jim, how did you feel about it?
Initially when they were talking about the torture, whatever it was, but they didn't show it to you yet, 1,000% I thought it was Boar Gullet. They presented it almost the same, and it felt almost the same. And now thinking back on it, it still feels almost exactly the same as Boar Gullet.
I'm so glad it wasn't, though.
Yeah. That's a good call, though, Jim.
Yeah.
It depends now. Is that the Boar Gullet scene Star Wars for you? Because I know a lot of people had a problem with that, and that scene didn't feel Star Wars, but now you're like calling back to another scene that you're not quite sure is that Star Wars, but that was is now a movie that is 5 years old or so. And so it's one of those. I did really like as we set up the scene where Deidre's like, keep him here. And then as soon as Bix walks in, why is he still here? Get him out of here.
Great. That was good.
I laughed pretty hard at that one. But yeah, no, it was, you're right. It added intensity to a already intense episode. You're dealing with Andor in this prison complex. And the only times you're not with Andor in the prison complex, you're dealing with a torture situation. And so I don't know how to define Star Wars on if it's Star Wars or not.
Interesting. Thank you both.
How did you feel about it?
I thought I'm just in the, well, no pun intended, execution of the scene. I thought that two things were two things were just insanely brilliant. One is that we never hear what she hears, which makes it so much more frightening.
And they also cut out all sound.
Yeah.
When they put on the headphones.
Yeah. And as with you know what we've been saying about Andy Serkis, also points to the actress. The actress sells that. Without her, you believe what she's hearing, and that's all her. So I thought that was wonderful. And the other thing is just, you know, the conventional easy way to do it is the doctor is a monster like Dedra, but he's not. He actually has this bedside manner. He's actually very pleasant, even reassuring while he's doing these horrific things, which was just brilliant because it makes you more uncomfortable. Like his line about, you know, she shouldn't worry about the restraints. Nothing is, you know, which seems nice. And then you realize, no, it's so much worse. Like he's basically saying that's not the problem. So that was amazing. The Star Wars thing, I kept thinking about it, and I think what we're kind of all of us who are veteran fans of any level are still processing is that Star Wars horizons have exploded. Now, particularly with TV, they're just, when you only had a movie every 3 years, Star Wars had to be a certain thing. It had to have laser swords and John Williams score and a lot of action, et cetera. And, and that made sense, but it's so much bigger, to use a line from a certain movie, now that you can make room for everything. You can use Star Wars as kind of a template, as an ingredient to tell, kind of a paranoid American style show, for instance, or to do a lot of other things, including many things we haven't seen yet. And I simultaneously find that fascinating, but, there is a little kind of cognitive dissonance as a longtime fan to work through. And I think ultimately that's a good thing. But I also, when I've talked to people about the show, that's something I keep in mind, that I think that's a process for veteran fans, and that's okay. Everybody needs to kind of go along it and figure out where they are in it. But yeah, I mean, in isolation, it's not very Star Wars, but we've reached a point where, that I think increasingly doesn't matter. And I think that's great. But no, thank you. I was super curious about that. I've been bothering everyone who's watched the show about what they think about that.
Yeah, I thought it was like a brilliant, I was watching and have been watching. I'm a big horror movie fan, and obviously with Halloween having just passed, I watched a ton of horror movies. So it felt very it felt like that. It felt so horror in such a Saw way, but the original Saw, not what it is now, but that's only some people will understand that. Just dread, just pure dread. You can't get out of it. Dread. And I'm dying for a Star Wars horror movie. We've talked about this before, but just a pure horror Star Wars story. Give it to me and give it to me now, because clearly they can do it well. Clearly this team knows what they're doing and can do it. And that was such a well executed scene. I completely agree that there were brilliant elements to that. And yes, the Doctor being somewhat rational and calm and not just demented, but in a different way. So much scarier than if he was mean and a monster and just cold. So much worse. And it's just brilliant. So I'm still waiting for that. I'm still begging for that. I'm ready, but they'll never listen to me because, whatever.
So the Doctor is also 12, as my wife would put it.
Yeah, he's a baby. He's just a baby. Yeah, that's a child.
Which also adds to the innocentness. When you look at him, you go, oh, you can't be doing anything bad. And he's slowly describing, we just watch Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a similar explanation of what's going to happen to you. And it just keeps getting worse and worse as he's talking, but he doesn't change his pitch. He doesn't change how he's presenting it. It's just kind of very nonchalant. You're going to want to, you probably won't be able to talk, but that's okay.
He's just telling you about his day. This is just casual as hell, but it's this is the worst thing that's ever going to happen to you. And it's fine. It's totally okay. And you're what are you on, buddy? Because I need some of that. What's going on? Jesus. Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting scene. Yeah.
So I wanna talk about the prison a little.
Oh yes, please.
I found the design of the prison, the whole setup, and watching it again through a second time, you get little hints of where they first get on the ship, and he's they're kick off your shoes, and when you're watching it the first time, you're that is the weirdest request I could ever imagine them saying to prisoners. And it didn't quite kick in until I watched it again. I'm oh, okay, now it makes sense. And it's that first time that they get zapped when they land and they all kind of go blurry in the background. I still, that is one of those visual scenes. They're all kind of blurry and they're all on their tippy toes.
Yeah.
And so
It's
they
like
have this
the
weird,
instinct to just get away from the thing that's hurting them.
Yeah, they have all these weird silhouettes, and I'm just trying to picture the actors trying to do that. Like, and now you're going to be electrified from the floor, so do that.
Yeah, they needed a movement coach, I'm sure. Because, yeah, they're all doing things that's just like, that's unnatural as hell looking. This must hurt. Like, oh no. Like, they look unnatural, but I don't mean in a not believable way. Just in a, oh boy, that's
In an in
rough.
distress way. Yeah.
Yeah, just, oh woof. That must stink. We definitely don't want to do that more than once.
And then they do it again in an hour.
Oh yeah, real quick. But yeah, what a terrifying setup, right? It's just so isolating and so like, okay, you're on floor 7, you have no idea what's going on below you, like at all. Who knows? Like that's kind of terrifying, right? Like you're just the people in your group, that's who you're with and that's it. And like the place could be on fire. You don't know. Like, you know, it's just that prison is something else. And that idea of like, yeah, someone got out on 5 and then showed up on 2 the next day. You're like, I'm sorry? Like, I did not see that coming at all. I mean, it makes total sense. It's believable immediately. They're planting those seeds. They're like showing you something's wrong. We hear in that first episode, like, that number's just going to keep going up. Like, no matter what it says, that number's going to go up. And then that turns out to be, like, true. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And, yeah, it just, the hopelessness of that.
There's also, but there is something that's fun about it in a twisted way. Like, it's basically the kid game of the lava floor. But
Yes,
what if you
it
did
is.
it for real and made it prison? And then you're like, oh, that's really kind of not so fun. But but I love. I mean, hell, I don't know, but I strongly suspect like that was the origin of it. Like, did you play that as a kid? Well, what if? And then you kind of spin from there. But
We're going to make the prison, but the floor is
something
lava.
amazing. Yeah.
It's really, I actually texted someone in the middle of watching that episode. This is the worst game of the floor is lava ever. So I'm glad we're all having the same thought. But you're absolutely right. That's definitely how, like, that's how it originated. They just made it better. Better in air quotes. But you know what? Like, they elevated the idea and it's excellent. Like, we can all have that thought, like, oh, it's the floor is lava. But it's still terrifying. Like, it doesn't diminish the effect of this thing. It almost makes it worse. Like, oh yeah, this is a hard game. I know that. Like, it's just
Also,
terrifying.
Andor stresses me the hell out. When he first gets there, they're like, when it starts blinking red, you have 7 seconds. Or starts blinking white, you have 7 seconds. And everybody's getting off the floor. He is the last one to get off the floor within seconds. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, it's another salute to them. Like, we know Cassian lives because, well, we see how he dies tragically. But it didn't matter. I was still super stressed out by that. Like, Cassian, what are you doing? Get in your booth.
Yeah,
You're killing me, man.
Just go.
So, yeah, more points. I mean, that should leak all the tension out of it because you know the character lives, but not at all.
no, yeah, not at all. And then we watch someone fling themselves on that floor, and you're like, oh boy, like this is if that's the way we're opting to go, what's going on in here? Like, it's just, there's so many questions as to, like, Cassian is introduced to so many, like, dangerous, horrible, earth-shaking things in that episode, and you're just like, what else is there? How many levels of hell are there? You know, like, in this level, whatever. But, like, it's just, there's a lot going on there, and it just keeps getting worse. Every time you're like, okay, I get it. It gets worse. And it's wild.
I can't remember the prisoner's name, the one who died.
The older gentleman?
Ulaf. Yes.
Ulaf, yeah.
I'm like something with a U. That had to have been what killed him. is the electrical shocks, right? Like, is that what we're assuming? Or
I mean, he had a stroke, so it's probably a combination of electrical shock, the trauma of that, and then just he's old, working,
manual
being on
labor,
his
12
feet,
hours a day,
working with his hands, like all of that.
I'm so glad you brought up Olaf, though. Can I geek out about something? So, why does Olaf exist? Here's a question for you.
Because Elsa built him.
Oh God, Jim.
This is totally unfair because I, of course, have something in mind, which is not the answer or any answer.
Yes, but you completely glossed over my Olaf joke.
Jim. I mean, he is the reason we find out what is actually happening in in the prison. Like, he's our vehicle to the truth, right? Not to like dehumanize him, but he is our vehicle to the truth. That's the purpose of his character. That we have a kind of a look into the future of like how these people, if they even make it to that age, are gonna die. We see this humane way he's killed, but he's been dying for like years, so really humane, guys. And then just like, this is how we find out what's going on through this doctor. So he plays multiple roles in terms of like figuring out what's the true nature of this place and just how deadly it can be. But yeah, I thought he, bless his little heart. His sacrifice is basically the fact that Cassian knows what the hell is going on.
Well, it's not entirely on his shoulders story-wise. Is you also have I don't know the character's name, the one doing the sign language with across the way. He's also getting information that Andy is kind of putting it down. He's like, just ignore them. They don't know what they're talking about. You're not getting all the information. But he's like, there's something bad going on down there, and that kind of triggers them questioning,
right?
Which also then leads to when Olaf dies. What is going on? Because like we've been hearing rumors that you killed 100 people.
yeah, but without him, it's just a rumor. As our boy says, like, it's just a rumor, even though he totally believes something horrible is happening. We could see it, but he's like, yeah, it's just a rumor. Everyone chill. Like, I got 200 days left of this stuff. Sorry, Jim. Like, let's all be chill. But he's panicking. But until this sad death, it's just a rumor. Like, even with that, he's not giving up any information to Cassian. But yeah, it's that final straw of like, this is how we find out what's going on. This is what's going to push us to like actually escape. He's a catalyst, and a brilliant one at that.
No, I love it. It's you do this, you run into plot problems, and you can't, and you got to figure out how to solve them. And frankly, I mean, most of my answers are lame. You try to write fast around it and hope no one cares. But I mean, that was absolutely brilliant. Like, the sign language thing is cool, but the audience is not going to believe the conclusion you draw to based on only that, as you mentioned, as Andy Serkis doesn't. So you need somebody else. You need somebody who's in the know, who's on their side, who's going to go from place to place. So you think about that. That's a problem. Who could it be? Well, it's a medic. Okay, but the medic works for the Empire, so the medic's not going to tell them that. Well, what if a prisoner has to be a medic? Okay, you're getting somewhere. Now you've got it. Now it's a great moment as a storyteller. You're within range. Okay, but now you need a reason for the medic to be there. And so now you've got a character. And you work backward. But the genius part is, filling a plot hole. Like, you work in houses, Jim. That's all you need is spackle for that. But you can do it so much more elegantly with a little bit of time. Let's make a character we care about, but he's also going to be a plot vehicle that gives the audience not a shadow of a doubt, and even more importantly, Andy Serkis, not a shadow of a doubt of what's actually happening. And it's genius. From this starting point of, oh God, we've got this problem, how do we fix it? To let's make a character and an arc that we really care about, that, as you guys noted, supports all these other things too. I mean, it's just really, really good work, and I just admire it so thoroughly.
Yeah, I agree. It's so impressive. It's so impressive when again, that level of finesse it's like, it's interesting because so many people are just going to see it and be like, oh, that's cool. But then you've got people who are like, oh my, like explosions in the brain. Just like, that was so elegant and like such an impressive way to pull that off, because that is a heck of a problem. You've got these isolated people who can't communicate with each other aside from like a little bit of sign language. And even then you're not getting the whole story. Yeah, what a brilliant solution. And yeah, heart-wrenching as well. Like, we just lost someone who you're like, the whole episode, you're like, this stinks. Like, he's got like 30 days left. Just get him out of here. Like, it's heartbreaking. Like, he keeps saying, Andy Serkis' character keeps saying, like, he only has however many days it was left. Like, just get him through that. Just get him through that. And it's like, that's what's right in front of our faces. That's the problem that, like, we keep dealing with. But then it's like, this is going to open up a whole other door that we're not thinking about right now, because his, like, life being in danger is the immediate. My God, I could talk about it for hours. We don't have time.
And your 41-day countdown doesn't end because you just go to a different level.
Right. Which is just like...
it's all so good.
Oh!
And the key is like, they don't need to convince us. The audience is fairly easily convinced on a lot of things. You can kind of give hints here and there, and the audience is convinced. You need to make it plausible that Andy Serkis' character is convinced.
Yeah. Yeah, because he is so by the book until that moment. And he, oh my gosh. And he's so impressively by the book. You're like, I respect this man. You just want to pay your days and be gone. But like, then he finds out that's not going to happen. And it's like a switch flips and you're like, hell yeah. Like, this next episode is going to be
It's going to be intense.
It's going to be so good. Like, I was amped for Aldani. Like, I was amped for all that. And it was cool. I liked it. It was fun. Great stuff. Good heist. Awesome. This is going to be dope. Like, every moment of this is just going to be so good. And I have no doubt that it's going to be. Like, my full confidence is in this episode. It's going to be great. I'm going to cry when Andy's character dies. That's gonna stink. It was the same thing with the kid in the first arc. I was like, he ain't making it. That's how I feel about Andy Serkis. He's gonna have a heck of an on-screen death, isn't he? It's gonna be great. But it's cool that there's this much weight and this much suspense when we know Cassian gets out. Like, we know he gets out. I just want to know how. I'm so excited to find out how.
So I think circling back to subtlety in the storytelling, I didn't notice the first time around. You know, when the power goes out and they're all kind of like, why? Like, what happened? Why did they turn off the lights and stuff? Mm-hmm. That's when they electrocuted the people.
Oh, Jim.
Because the timing works out, and but you, like, when you're first watching it, it doesn't mean anything. When you go back and watch it, you're like, oh, that's because it's like, it was one of those surge, like a brownout sort of thing, not like a real, like, we turned off the lights sort of thing. They did it like a brownout, and you're like, it seems like they're drawing a lot of power. Oh, when you have electric floors and you're frying 100 people, it's going to take a lot of power.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And nobody pops up to say it.
Mm. Yeah.
Again, just depends on the audience to figure it out.
I love that. This show's going to be endlessly rewatchable. Like, it's just going to be so good. Oh, man. I can't believe I didn't put that together. Good job. Good job, Nicole. But yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying good job to me, but
well,
never
also
mind.
good job to you. It was a sarcastic good job
good.
to me. Well done, Jim. How's that?
Thank you. I thought it
So
did good.
welcome.
I put the Peasel puzzles together, as I said to my daughter, and she didn't let go. Did you just say Peasel puzzles? Yes, I did.
I said what I said. You heard me. I meant it. Excellent. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited by this show in a way I hadn't been excited by this show before, so I'm pleased. And now I just want to watch the whole thing over again and be like, I'm gonna eat my hat. Like, this is good stuff.
Another line I want to bring up is when Douche Canoe, the husband, It's like Jason, the husband of
Yeah, I get it.
Mon
I get it.
Mothma,
We have nicknames for people.
is talking to Vel and goes, "Are you gonna go find yourself a husband?" And I believe Mon Mothma scoffs, like audibly
I did too.
scoffs in the background, and Vel's kind of like, "Yeah, I don't see that happening."
Yeah, not on my list of priorities, hun. Like, and she's just like looking at her cousin, like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me with this? Like, this is really the conversation we're having." Yeah, douche canoe's just more of a douche canoe every time he opens his douche canoe mouth. But yeah, just wild. That was really good.
Also, Vel is now Batman in my my mind. It's like she fights crime in the disguise, and she's a spoiled rich kid during the day.
Yeah, that's why I like her so much. Apparently, that makes sense. She's such an interesting character. She cleans up good, and good for her. You know. But I do kind of want her to just, like, go somewhere and lay low for a minute, like, because I want to protect her at all costs. That's not going to work out. But I'm just like, go sit in a room full of bubble wrap and don't move. Like, give me, like, 10 years and then you can come out. Like, I just want her to be okay, but...
Yeah, there's got to be... well, it's basically the red shirt thing. I was going to say TV tropes has to have a word for this, where you get invested in a character who you know ain't gonna make it. But though I don't know, it's a big galaxy, maybe.
Yeah, maybe she went off somewhere and we just never saw her again by happenstance.
Maybe.
The George R. R. Martin conundrum that when you start to love a character, isn't that what happened with like at the Red Wedding? I don't want to like spoil people who've never seen it, but the one character, people loved the one character so much, and he's like, people got to stop loving that character, and so he killed him off.
I don't know if it was that. I know he's done that, where it's like, oh, you like him? Sorry about that. Like, but yeah, that's one of those things. Like, there's usually another reason for it. Like, I don't know if, like, any writer's like, I'm just going to spite my audience. Let me just do it. There's usually another reason. But yeah, it's like, what I've done is like, oh, I'm going to kill this person. I'm going to make them love them first. Like, I'm going to rip your heart out. It's usually the other way around. Like, I know this one's got to die, so let's make it really impactful.
It's like those shows where you have a group of characters and all of a sudden the episode focuses on one of the characters that you've never focused on before. And you're like, well, you're not making it through the episode now.
You're done. Yep. That's how I felt about that kid, man. I forget his name. I liked him a lot. Forgot his name. Got crushed by a bunch of crates.
But Nicole, if I'm not violating the Writers Guild rules, like, isn't there such a joy in it when you know you've set the audience up just for torture?
Yeah, it's so like it's so bad. But
Sorry,
you're kind of
audience,
like,
it's true.
It's like, oh, this is gonna be good. Because like, as a consumer of media, it hurts, but I'm so impressed by it every time. I'm like, wow, they really made me feel something. Like, I've enjoyed this, even though it stinks.
Nemec.
And you're like, I got it, Nemec. Thank you. Yeah, but there's joy in doing that well, because it means people care. And like that's and yeah, there's a little bit of like maniacal laughter in the background as well. It's nice. Like, it's one of those things like you can't explain it to quote unquote normal people. It's just like, yeah, it just is. Like, it's great.
Well, I love the Shakespearean end that Nemec had. The like the communist essentially that he is being crushed by the imperial money. Yeah,
very, very it's a heavy-handed metaphor, but I like it. Like, literally the capitalist empire crushed, and those two things are pretty much mutually exclusive, huh? It just like crushed him literally. Oh god, I said it. I called that. And I'm gonna, the second he showed up, Jim, I said, he's done. He's dead. I love him. He's screwed. Like, immediately. And that's how I feel about Vel, and it's definitely how I feel about Andy Serkis. Because, A, you're not going to pay that man for more than 3 episodes. And B, I'm sure he wants a death. Like, I'm sure he wants to do that, and not just be Gollum falling into lava.
Andy Serkis's only requirement, he's like, do not cut me in half with a lightsaber.
Yeah, don't do that and let me die. Let me die. I'm like, okay. I'd be like, you got it, buddy. I will write you such an end. Oh, Lord. But yeah, oh gosh. If it's done well, which at this point I'm very confident it will be, I'm going to be happy no matter what at the end of this episode. Like, at the end of the show, whatever the body count is, I'm going to be like, yeah, that's right.
Somebody has to have done a YouTube of Andy Serkis character exits. I mean,
oh yeah,
there's the guy in King Kong gets what, like eaten by a nematode or something gross.
Mm-hmm.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, I've seen that movie once, but like it rings a bell.
It's got to be a bunch of others. Well, if not, it gave some member of your audience a free idea.
Yeah, there you go. Have that.
Go get some exploitative but not actually terrible views. Andy Serkis exits. There's somebody else who's like, yeah, I already did that 5 years ago. You're a jerk.
Yep, we'll get
Just
a
search the YouTube. I'm there.
yeah.
Sorry to wherever you are.
Yeah. The algorithm didn't do them any favors because I haven't seen it. So.
All right, I think that's everything I had on the episode. Jason, is there anything that you wanted to bring up before we wrap it up?
No, just to thank both of you for including me in your wonderful discussion. I feel honored and grateful, and it was a ton of fun. So thanks so much.
Yes,
we feel honored and grateful for having you. It's been awesome.
Thanks.
We feel super honored that a Star Wars celebrity of your esteem would deem to join us.
Yeah, very pleased. So thank you.
And it was absolutely a lot of fun. I'm super glad that you did come on and to chat with us. Like I said, I wanted as I invite people on the show, I want them to come on as Star Wars fans, not necessarily for whatever they're known for. Like, yes, obviously you're a Star Wars author, but I didn't want you as the Star Wars author on the show. I wanted you as a Star Wars fan as well.
Oh yeah, well that is one of the things I love about being a Star Wars author, though, is I've never met another Star Wars creator, no matter what it is, who's not a big giant dorky fan, and that's so much fun. Like they're so much more excited to like geek out about Return of the Jedi or some Marvel newspaper strip from a billion years ago than they are about their own work, which is really, really cool. And one reason I think this all works. But no, I'm a little annoyed with both of you because now I'm like so fired up for episode 10 that I actually may stay up till 3 a.m. and wreck myself at work, and God knows. So yeah, if you see angry tweets, that's why.
Well, that's
so
fine.
Sorry about that. Just a little sorry about that.
That's a good reason to be mad at us, though. It's okay. And for anybody listening, we have had Jason on before as the author, talking about his authorness. Way back episode, I had to look it up. Episode 29.
What episode is this?
Oh boy,
almost 129 actually.
Yeah, because that predates me for sure.
Oh wow! Okay.
When did I join?
This is episode 129. You are exactly 100 episodes later.
No way! All right, I'll see you at 229 if you're not too.
Yeah, there you go. Hey,
I'm sure I was super tedious in episode 29, so thanks for having me back.
So, any ways that you would like the adoring public to get in touch with you, Jason?
I'm still on Twitter, and I think I don't know what we've decided. It's probably all going to burn down, but it hasn't burned down quite yet, so we're all still in the house, which everybody else is a bad idea.
Everybody's looking at the walls going, huh.
We're touching the floor.
This room isn't on fire? Yeah, who knows? But anyway, I'm Jason C. Fry on Twitter. I'm not Jason Fry. That's another guy who also knows Star Wars and is much nicer than me. So follow him too. And he also redirects all the missed tweets, which is super nice. But I am Jason C. Fry, and that is honestly probably the easiest way. Or check out my mostly cobwebby and abandoned Substack if you want, which one day I will get back to, I swear, which is Jason Fry's Dorkery. But I don't know. I'm around. Not hard to find. You got a Star Wars question that can be responsibly asked, go ahead and ask me. not asked, responsibly answered, go ahead and ask it. I'm always happy to.
And a Mets question is a.
Oh, no Mets questions in the offseason. We all need to rest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. And with that, you can reach us through email, Talkin Tauntauns at AIPTcomics.com. You can find us on Twitter for now, I guess, as long as that Twitter's still a thing, at Talkin Tauntauns. You can join our Patreon through AIPT Comics and come on with us on Discord. You can share the show with a friend. You can leave us a review. We love reviews. We love good reviews. We prefer good reviews.
I like good reviews.
And with that, next week, again, we are going to put a pause on Andor, and we're going to finish up the second half of the Tales of the Jedi with the 3 Ahsoka episodes. So we will see you then.